There's no other place I'd rather live and build a company than in Austin right now. We could spend 6 months trying to fill this role in Austin, or I can get it filled for you in 3 weeks if we go and look at other places and just recruit from everywhere. And
I think that we've got to view these things more as a systemic challenge and just say, are we really attacking like the various parts of, you can call it a flywheel, you can call it whatever you want, but like, are we really addressing the issues that are interconnected to one another across politics, the funding environment, the entrepreneurial culture you build, talent, all of these things are very important.
Our office is straight in the middle of downtown. Sometimes I have to fight some crackheads on the way into the office, but like it's fine. It's nothing like San Francisco.
I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about solving this problem as we think about, how we make Austin the preeminent 2035 city in the country.
Austin will go through kind of a rebirth.
Most advanced technology in the world, and if you can't actually build it or ship it, then what's the point?
You need storytellers who are able to paint the picture of what's happening at the frontiers of technology.
The U.S. needs to get back more to that and less like lawyerish and more we're building stuff.
The frontier isn't just a place, it's forged in the fire. Welcome to Austin Next.
Alex, Will, welcome to Austin Next.
Thanks for having us, man.
I love doing these in person.
All right, so let's just, before we dive into everything, 60 seconds on Gyde and Hello Patient.
Yeah, I can start. So maybe before even Gyde, I'm a guy that grew up in Austin, so particularly excited to be doing the pod. For me, I think it's very exciting to be kind of bringing a company's headquarters that, I've kind of been dreaming about building for 6+ years here, and, a city that I grew up in and have a lot of passion for both making more relevant on a national scale, but even internationally as we think about, I think, what Austin's been able to achieve the last decade and what could only accelerate, I think, based on various factors, which I'm sure we can get into later.
I did not pay him at all to say any of this.
Hey, look, I'm a local guy, man. I'm pro Austin for the entirety of my existence. So I owe a lot to the city, and I think it's great to be able to, in some ways, give back by building here. The business that I lead is called Gyde. We are what we would call an AI native brokerage platform that largely grows through M&A. So we acquire agencies across the country, largely focused on the health space, but over time we'll increasingly kind of expand that, breadth of services that we acquire into other insurance lines and potentially even some wealth management services as well. A big part of what we bring to the partners is an AI platform that helps them grow the business. So one of the kind of key promises we have is both assembling a great team for them to get access to, and that is ultimately building that platform from backgrounds like Oscar, Stripe, etc. But two, also a team of operators that literally partner with them on the ground, hand in hand, to help them grow the companies. I think that it's incredibly important to preserve what we would view as kind of like the SMB community within the brokerage space and to empower them with tools that perhaps some of their larger peers and competitors are getting to ultimately help them grow their businesses and compete.
Patient.
I will also, I suppose, start with why I love Austin as
There you
well.
go.
I mean, given that we're doing an Austin podcast, but I'm not an Austin native. I'm a Florida native, spent time in San Francisco and New York. And I think at this point, and Jason is not paying me to say this, but there's no other place I'd rather live and build a company than in Austin right now. I do think I had to do a tour of duty in those two cities before coming here for a number of reasons, network related. But I think if you have done your time there, you have kids, you want to build, you want to be in a city that actually has tech and has good people, there really isn't another city beyond New York or SF where you can do all of that. Like, I wouldn't want to raise kids in New York or any of the suburbs or go try to figure out where in SF I'm going to go buy a ranch house that's 1,200 square feet for $4 million. And so Austin, I think, has the best of both worlds. And we've been here, we're on year 5 now, and we love it. Like, we moved family out here. So we're here and we're building here. Our office is downtown and we love it. And the company I'm working on is called Hello Patient. So we build conversational AI for healthcare clinics, and we end up taking over their phone lines, their patient communication, both from a inbound perspective. So think about the last time you called an urgent care clinic and no one picked up. And now you have an AI that can answer the phone, read and write back to the schedule, make appointments, answer questions on insurance, pricing, hours, things like that. It works 20. Similarly, on the outbound side, we do everything across the full patient life cycle. So when a bill is due, or when you're overdue for a visit, or when you just haven't been seen in a while, or even, let's say you go into a clinic and the clinic wants to follow up and just see how you're doing the next day. Like traditionally, you'd have to hire a person or have your receptionist call and just do that over and over and over again and play phone tag. And now you can put an AI behind it. So we really think about AI as a function of labor inside of the clinic, but in a way where we can even be an incremental expense to what they're doing because they don't have to go hire a net new full-time person. So that's really what we're building with the long-term goal of being a fully agentic CRM and contact center for retail healthcare.
Before we go down into the business of health, I want to pull on something you said, which I 100% agree, which is, okay, if you're coming here, you want to build a family, you want to build in tech and all that kind of stuff, it makes a lot of sense. The gap I've seen, and it may get into kind of the talent conversation we wanted to have, is we aren't attracting the 25-year-old founder.
No.
And that does seem to be a gap, right? It's like, we got to go make. Yeah.
I mean, even just the engineer.
And this thing, and the origin of this episode, I talked to both of you separately, and tell me like, hey, we got to go open a New York office to get the engineering talent that we need. And it's like, okay, that's not good in the long run, right? At least from the ecosystem perspective. Obviously, if you're getting the talent you need, you get the talent. So, what is it that we are? What's the gap? Is it the skill set? Like, okay, you need high-end AI talent and it's just not enough here. Is it, just number of engineers? Is it you're competing with, the base or the monster companies that are here and we just don't have enough for to go around? What's the issue?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I don't think we're competing with those companies because they're hiring a much different profile of candidate than we are. Like we're looking for full stack software engineers or even like some applied AI engineers. And that is something that you just don't see a lot of here in Austin. I think if you are 25, trying to work for a tech company, there's actually just not that many of us here hiring in that particular domain. And so it's quite risky to move here if you're in that age group. And so, when you look at somewhere like San Francisco or New York, like there's just opportunities that are 10 times the amount that are here. I mean, SF, you can throw a stone and hit any tech company within a mile distance. And, if you're moving there and you want to go work for an OpenAI or an Anthropic or like any number of like Stripe, Uber, Lyft, like you name it, we just don't have pure software companies here that are hiring at that level of role. And so let's say you take a job with us and you move
here. So is
Meta,
Google, are they not, it's not the software talent that's here?
No, I've only seen like sales and ops mostly.
Yeah. And that's
marketing.
Generally what you'll see from the larger publics. They'll keep the kind of technological center of gravity, for lack of a more eloquent term, in the Bay Area or in New York. And then you'll usually see sales, operations, some of the commercial resources here in Austin, which, can be some benefit on the commercial side. But I think to your point, does create a little bit of a like tech talent gap, particularly within like this segment of the engineering world. I'd even say, look, though, like the base powers of Saronics, et cetera, have done incredibly well. But I think every single one of them would tell you in the early days it wasn't easy to recruit engineers.
No, it becomes when you're raising billion-dollar rounds, like actually that creates a gravity onto itself that says like,
That's true. Although I will say, I think that they're hiring a different, like you have to be in person to go build defense tech with Saronic and to go build like batteries and energy grids with Base. Like for us, you meet a lot of engineers who are like, why can't I just do this remotely? It's software engineering. Like I've done remote for 4 or 5 years. And I think you have to make a decision, at least where we both raised recently, we both are trying to enter hyper growth mode. How quickly or how slowly do you hire to try to, on principle, hire everyone in one place? Or do you just hire the best people where you meet them and optimize for speed over this concept of being in person? So that's why we've ended up hybrid. If it were up to me and we had more time, I would try to hire every single person here in Austin. But when, like, for example, we just had someone accept, not even on the engineering side, but on what we call the agent product manager side. He's in Ohio. He's been working for Nice CX, the big, like one of the contact center companies for a few years, building AI agents with them. I may or may not be able to get him to move.
How has he been building agents for years? Like
traditionally, you'd have like deterministic agents inside the contact centers, and you'd go build some keyword matching and stuff like that. But all these folks also evolved to building generative agents recently, and so he's been doing that for that company. But it's really a question like, do I wait to try to find someone who's willing to move to Austin and has the same experience? Or do I hire someone who's been doing this now for 2 years and he just wants to stay in, I don't know where he is, Columbus or Cincinnati or one of the Ohio's. I don't even know Ohio's a state, but like he's there. And my director of sales would kill me when she hears that because she's in Columbus. But same thing with her. It's like, she was selling enterprise healthcare for 8 years. Am I going to wait to try to find a unicorn who's here, or do I optimize for hiring the best people where they are? And that's kind of the struggle, is you don't have a talent pool that's dense enough to wait to hire like you do in San Francisco or New York.
Yeah. And I mean, I think like for us, we have a fairly unique business. I think one, we have a lot of team members in New York that I think incredibly highly of, and I think we're grateful for the opportunity to work with them. My co-founder is one of them. And so I think for us, we had kind of an inherent ability to recruit in both places because we had both of us in New York and Austin just because of where we resided.
Right.
So I think that was a little bit of an out-of-the-box advantage where we didn't have to decide to open an office necessarily. It was more of just like, hey, this is what we're going to do because we were both already split. I think the thing that we have rotated into, similar to what Alex just articulated, was, I think initially we wanted to have more of a centralization, even with our engineering team, in the two offices. That is still a big preference for us, but I think we're much more kind of remote tolerable, as we think about growing the engineering team quickly without an office in places like SF, because we don't have really infrastructure there. We have some team members in LA who are incredibly gifted. So I think we do have some team members in California.
So what's the split? You've got New York, Austin, and remote.
The way that we were just drawing it up like recently, we think it's like roughly 40% Austin, 40% New York, 10% LA, and now 10% Miami, actually. And so there's like one or two of individuals that kind of live outside of those core metros, but that's actually more of the split.
And then is New York an engineering dense hub for you?
Much more engineering dense.
Okay.
Austin's much more kind of commercially dense. And I think our business.
Are you not recruiting in SF just due to costs? Like you just the fight and talent to try to get SF talent?
It's not even so much that we're not recruiting there. It's much more so that I think our preference was places where we had an office or had, kind of those with influence in the city. And I do think that's a big deal as you think about recruiting technology talent early, because it's kind of like story, founder fund, but then also just like the inherent influence and kind of like micro networks that you have in those places. And so I grew up working at Oscar, right? I was there for 10 years, a New York-based company. Oscar never had an SF office. And so there was really no even network effect for me personally. There was no real network effect for my co-founder. Our lead investor, Brendan from Lightspeed, is in New York. And so like we didn't have a ton out of the gate of, SF network. And I just found it was kind of silly to try to go that direction, knowing that not only would it be a ruthlessly competitive talent market, you had no real right to win there for us. And even in our business, in some respects, you need talent that comes from private equity. You need talent that comes from kind of venture operations. You need talent that comes from venture technology startups. And so on the private equity side, Austin is actually an unbelievable place for
so
talent.
many PE firms here.
Alpine is here, Vista is here. And oh, by the way, if you're looking at hiring from those profiles, it's a good time to be doing it given the current, state of software across the country. And, I think for us, if you look at our Austin office, that's kind of what you're assembling is a combination of, ex-consultants, great operators that came from places like Bain, world-class private equity operators that came from the Alpines, the Vistas, et cetera, the world. And I think in New York, you see a slightly more bent towards kind of strategy and tech, in a combination with my co-founder. I actually don't think it's a terrible split. Would I love to see more of the technological infrastructure from the New York and SFs of the world come to Austin? Yes. But I think to Alex's point, there's a center of gravity challenge that is very tough to displace, just given the years and years of inertia and the just quantums of funding that have been pumped into companies in those metros that then ultimately gets cascaded down to the employees, keeps them around longer, and that perpetuates for years. I think the running joke is like AI saved SF was a nice one-liner, and I think that is true.
Right.
I think that is true.
I would agree with that. And then I think, you also, one place that's underrated for what you guys are doing is Dallas. And I presume it's easier to move folks from Dallas to Austin than it is from New York to Austin. 100%. And like, we go sell to all the PE groups in Dallas. I'm up there like once a quarter right now. Yeah. So I think that's just part of it is we don't really like to hire big company coded people. I think we've done that and it hasn't worked out already. And they just don't understand the chaos and I would say the uncertainty of startups versus like everyone in SF in New York is used to that. And I don't think we have a single person who's in San Francisco. We have someone who's in Napa, but she leads brand and marketing design. And so, and I worked with her at Carbon Health, and it's kind of one of those things where we would hire in San Francisco. We just don't get that many candidates from SF, I would say, or, you do meet some of these candidates and you're like, oh, they're nothing special. Like just because they're in San Francisco doesn't mean that they're exceptionally good. And so I think in Austin, you have an opportunity to spend a little bit more time trying to find gems, but it does take longer. So you have to hire great people where they are.
And then what about are we seeing at the very low end, the entry, like the UTs, like is it pumping out what
we don't hire
need?
Fresh grads, which might be part of our struggle too. It's like, if you've never shipped anything to production, we don't have time to train someone how to go ship production code. Like our youngest employee is 21, by the way. And
that's pretty young.
Yeah. So he didn't go to college. He graduated high school. He started building bots to buy sneakers online, do all the drop shipping sneaker stuff. And then he spent 2 years at a startup that was kind of like shitting the bed. And I was like, that's great experience. Like he's been through it, and he was the only other person besides their CTO. That is the type of like 3 or 4 years of experience that we'll hire for. And that might be an overlooked candidate by an OpenAI or an Anthropic or someone like that. And he's now our most tenured employee, actually, beyond the founding team. He's been with us now for like 1.5 years out of 2 years. And he's grown a lot in that time. But I think like we don't have too many, like I think he's the youngest. I think our second youngest is probably like mid-20s, like starting to get into the higher 20s.
You're just not, it's too small to be able to depend on that kind of situation.
Yeah, you just don't have time to go train and really like, especially for a core function where I'm like, okay, I got to go find a head of marketing, which we did go hire. He starts, I think, next week. He's in Houston. I think he's going to move to Austin. Right. And I can't go hire a fresh grad to go learn marketing for the first time.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, if it's head of marketing, no, that's not a fresh grad, right? But you need to then grow more to get a point that you can have that layer kind of.
But we did just hire someone here to run conference logistics. That's a big part of it. Like all of our marketing spend goes to conferences basically, and it was sucking up a huge part of the team's time. And so we hired a woman, and this is like really her first real role actually, and she's been doing great. But that's like logistics and conferences and things that are more reversible if we mess everything up.
Right.
And so I think
less
it's like
one-way Dory.
What is it?
Less one-way doors.
Yeah,
in those
100%.
You don't know my opinion on conferences. So when I was at Amgen, I was part of the marketing effectiveness team. So basically we were the ones kind of off on our own and then going and saying our conferences, our ads, I can tell you I saw data that a celebrity drug ad does do better than a non-celebrity drug ad. So
press.
You'd think like you're not sure, like, is this person's pitching it or not kind of thing. Because it's like, if I have, I forget even what it was for. I think it was Emerald. But I do remember that we showed the data that conferences don't have a great ROI. And of course, and the result was they disbanded the team because you touch that, just don't touch the conference budget kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, conferences are gold. I think it just really depends on who you sell to. I'm sure you guys are hitting up a bunch of conferences and meeting all these brokers, and they all show up in Vegas for this at the same time to go party and sell their businesses. And in our case, we're meeting all the private equity groups and like the consolidated healthcare clinics. And they all this weekend, we're going to be at the urgent care convention. It's the largest urgent care conference in the country.
Where is it? It's
in Chicago.
That's great.
I have a crazy story about Chicago conventions in a second. And then I'm flying directly from Chicago to Charlotte to go to another medical group convention. And so it's like, I've mostly delegated conference stuff out to the team, but for the really big ones, I'll show up and still like go. We host happy hours and dinners, and that's where all of our marketing spend goes.
Yeah. The real problem is, and we admit, is the actually having metrics that you can track and then measure against at conferences.
But it's easy for us. It's like, how many people did you meet? And then how much did we spend? And did that turn into a deal? And what's that deal worth? And if we sourced it from a conference, it's very easy to look at ROI that way.
I think when you're that small, when you get to the size of like an Amgen or these things, it's like, oh, this many people went to the booth. But yes, you also talked to that same doctor 90 other times.
For sure.
And so this is that versus also the things that don't happen in the room. To your point, like we met them here, had the deal, done. It's a pretty straightforward metric.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same people right now who are doing the sales that are going to the conferences. So it's all one big bundle of like marketing and sales spend. And then, I mean, you just kind of have to go anyway. I mean, they need to see you over and over and over and over again. The deal is not linear. Like this morning are about to close a deal that's taking me 6 months to close. And so and sure, I mean, there's probably a bunch of different channels that we've hit them up and like spend that has gone into it. But at least at our stage, you care a little bit less about, direct ROI. Like maybe if you're Amgen, you're like looking at every single dollar of spend and trying to optimize around it.
So I was at CES for the first time in January. I wanted to kind of check out the health side and see if it was worth going to on a regular basis. What I found interesting was, at least on the floor, the bigger guys like weren't there. So the example being like, I saw, like Function and Superhuman weren't there, but then a bunch that I had never heard of were there. And so it was this interesting adverse selection kind of effect.
At CES?
At CES. So you had so it was, at least, sorry, I didn't see, if they were there, I didn't see them, but like at least the whole digital health area.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that the ones who seem to be way out in front were like, this isn't worth our time.
I mean, I think if they're just as good as those folks are at digital acquisition, frankly. There's no reason to show up at the conference. If you're behind, you're probably trying to figure out any potential growth avenue you can come up with. So
That was exactly the point. It was the fact that, like, okay, these guys are probably not going to make it, the ones who are all showing up here. So it was kind of this interesting flip on the conference.
I mean,
side.
I don't know why you'd go to a conference if you are direct to consumer, but at least for B2B, like all the top companies. I mean, we compete with some of these in veterinary, and the biggest ones still show up and do the biggest booth activations and spend 5 times as much as we do. Like we may go spend $50K in a conference and they're spending $500 to $1 million on a conference. And so I don't know, but that seems right in D2C. It's like, adverse selection. Like, who are you going to, there's not going to be 1 million consumers that show up that you need to go sell to at one of these conferences. So
no, I remember some of this stuff.
On the conference note, real quick. So no one should ever host a conference in Chicago is my current take of the world, because all the conference stuff in Chicago is unionized now. And so we're actually spending like 25% more just on shipping, unloading, loading, and like repackaging, because they have all these premium fees that the unions now charge to do this work. And because it's on a Saturday, it's technically after hours. So it's overtime pay you have to pay these people. So it's like,
oh, really? Conference on a Saturday?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's when it starts. That's when the unloading is. So like, because you can only unload on a Saturday, technically to the union in Chicago, that is a weekend, and that's outside of normal hours. So we have to pay like 25% more just in shipping and logistics and like labor costs, basically, to go set up this booth.
Oh my God.
And it's so dumb. We should bring all conferences to Austin and not do Chicago.
Of course, we don't have a convention
And we
center.
don't have a convention center right now, but
yeah,
we'll do them at your house.
There you go. Perfect. No, well, I also want to think of like, talking about like New York, and I mean, you've seen this in SF too, but we're back in another wave of people leaving, right? And now a lot of people in like New York are leaving, or the majority are going to Florida. When you look at just the numbers, I kind of I think that this has got no data on this, that we're probably the 3rd spot people would go, right? So like, if you're the natural inclination is to go to Florida. If you want to move to Texas and you're in finance, you're more likely to go to Dallas. And then you're like, hey, I want to be in tech, leave New York, and don't want to go to Florida. Then I think, if you're leaving New York, you're not going to go to SF.
I mean, I could think the current big winner right now, to say the quiet part out loud, is Miami. I mean, full stop in the story. Like, I mean, we have 2 companies there that we acquired. There's a 3rd under LOI. I, in some ways, owe a lot of my career at Oscar to Miami. So, and I understand why. I mean, it is an incredibly attractive place.
I was there like a month ago. I was like, oh, this is awesome. In terms of weather, and it was,
Well, it's
I grew up down there, so I have different opinion.
Well, but I think now what they've done is just really made steps to make it an unbelievably attractive commercial environment for large organizations to come build in. And I think, look, if you're in a New York or a California and you're looking at other options, those are probably the 3 that you're evaluating. Within tech, I think it's realistically 2, but I'd probably say that Austin's winning more of its fair share in tech from California. Miami's winning more of its fair share at large for those that are migrating from those 2 states. But
I'm still trying to get a good answer of why Palantir went to Miami and not Austin.
Yeah.
Did we compete as hard as Miami did for the business?
Yeah, I think Mayor Suarez is a great mayor and has done a lot for that town. I mean, obviously
he's out now, though.
Oh, is he? I don't track it at all.
He is now allocating in Miami. And so I think whether or not he's out politically,
but he's still,
he is still in as far as competing for talent and organizations and in some ways capital into the city. And I do think we should really look hard at what they are doing and say, could we not be borrowing from some of that? Do we want that as a city?
No, it's even worse than that. You guys following what's happening with Tesla right now? Travis County, even though Tesla has blown through every single metric on the deal, it's like you needed to spend $1 billion. They spent $5 billion. Every metric they went through, Travis County is only giving them 91% of what the incentive
metrics,
deal did. So they're like, you don't have documentation. I'm not kidding about like water breaks. You're showing you're not green. Like, really? And this is the point about everybody's look at it and go like,
who's the main person here that would be like responsible for leading the initiative on that though, on that piece? Like who?
This is the thing, is there's no real talent. So like I think Miami actively assembled a lot of infrastructure and teams to compete for capital, businesses, talent. You could argue they've been varying degrees successful across those dimensions. I think more so of late, and some of that's perhaps because of decisions that I, of course, won't get into in various states that have helped him a lot in that capacity. I don't know if we as a city, and remember, I grew up here, so like I have a huge dog in this fight. I'm hugely pro Austin, but I think it is very fair to say what is the results if you just look at it on a net migration basis, and are you winning your fair share? And I think the answer is no, and the reason why is because I don't know if we're really competing for it the way that they are.
Right.
I think
And
we
also
should
they actually are avoiding Austin in many ways. Like they're coming to Williamson County, they're coming to Bastrop.
Sure. But I would even look at it as, are they picking Nashville or Miami over Austin? And I think, like, you know, it feels like more often than on the surface you would expect. I think that we're losing more than we should be. I think you should have won Palantir, given all I mean, you have Lonsdale here. You've got a lot of folks that are ex-Palantir that are in Austin already.
There's a huge, like, SpaceX, Palantir, and Anduril alums that are all running around, which is funny because Anduril and Palantir, like, I know they have small office, like, they're not really here, but you have a whole bunch of them all kind of running around.
I don't know. Maybe Austin's just gotten lazy to some extent and thinks that we've already like won tech and that it should be like a privilege to move here, and they're not fighting for it. And I don't think that I mean, being on the ground, I don't think that is true. Like, we should never feel like we're done and that we're like, you go downtown and I think there's still so much like vacant office space and there's so much opportunity here still. I think we should be fighting for, like, I don't know, again, who would be in charge of doing this, but like someone should be fighting for Elon to move all of his companies like actually here and not.
You need a real task force. And I think you need it at both the state and city level in some ways.
I think it's more happening at, like, I think that's the thing is, I mean, there are like economic development groups but my understanding, like a lot of why it happened in Bastrop is they just got to have his way.
Right.
It wasn't like some major incentives. It was just like, go build.
Yeah.
And when you have, I mean, look, you have the
just make it easier to do business.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what the entrepreneur ultimately cares about. Well, it's easier for me to do business and recruit.
I don't know if this is part of it, but I do think like Travis County is more liberal than Miami is at this point. And so I do wonder if like there's part of it, which is we have become anti-business and like anti-capitalist in terms of like Travis County as a whole.
A lot of it. When you have the, like, they won't, when people say we want to kick out Tesla, and I'm like, that is the second or third largest employer here now. Like, what are you talking about? So,
well, and I think, you know, generally speaking, I've always been a fairly centrist guy, so I kind of get both sides of the equation. I think to Alex's point, we could probably be leaning in harder to win more. You know, I think it's just like an objective reality. And I think there's a question of how you balance, you know, getting the essential services that you want in these communities that are relevant with getting the jobs, the infrastructure, and capital, which does fuel a lot of, right, the social services into the county. And, you know, I think there's a way to balance this. I think we've lost some of that balance, maybe more of late. And I think if you can get folks that are focused on achieving the right mix of those things, you're both going to win your fair share and be able to fund a lot of the services that I would view as both important for, you know, the city as somebody that grew up here, but also frankly might be out or winning more of their fair share of the argument than, you know, what Alex is right.
I've grown up here and I think you probably have more of a purview on this than I do, but sometimes I often see, you know, local Austinites or folks who have been here for a while that are very anti the city growing big. They're just like, I miss my old, you know, 1990s when this place was small.
I'm like, you know, let it rip, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it is you kind of you do have a bit of a sentiment of people like missing the old Austin, and then they look at downtown there and like, why is the skyline so big? Why is there so much traffic? Why are there all these things?
Right when I moved here, I saw a Statesman article from the 80s that was like, everybody's moving here and traffic sucks. Like, it's just the nature of Austin, because the two constants of Austin are change and people bitching about change.
Yeah. Well, I think you have a lot of resistance.
Human nature in general,
it's
though.
Fair.
It's resistance in human nature. And I mean, I think the telltale is when you see those like fun tweets or whatever about, you know, Austin and 2014 downtown skyline, Austin, you know, 2026 downtown skyline. Do you smile or do you frown? You know, and I think
did you see the SF ones that came out recently? It was like,
it was the same.
Exactly. Here's the 2 decades. You're like, nothing's changed at all.
I did see that.
Like, make it more
funny.
cyberpunk. Let's get like taller skyscrapers and more of them and make it as big as of a city as possible is like my current take of it. But I think you need a local government that encourages that and pushes for more transit and more infrastructure to support all of that. I mean, traffic, like yesterday took me 45 minutes to get home when it's normally a 22-minute drive. And so
I think I was sitting in that same traffic that you were yesterday.
I was like, oh, fuck this. Why'd I leave at 6 o'clock? This is why I stay in the office and deliver shareholder value till late. But
amen, baby.
You were sitting straight to your board.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where it's like, I just I don't know. I can't put my finger on a single person. You know, I think back to the mayor, who's our mayor, like Kirk Watson.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the last time he's posted anything like pro building here. I mean, maybe haven't tracked him that closely, but it's a lot different. Like, you know, Suarez built his entire brand in Miami during COVID around come here, build, we'll
One
make it
tweet
easy.
changed
How can I help?
everything.
And but I do think that whole how can I help like notion as a construct is an important one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's not saying how can I not do all of these things on maybe this side of the political aisle. It's saying, hey, how can we work together to build the right ecosystem such that these things all start to work together? Because look, if you're an optimist and saying, hey, look, I think that expansion is net good for everybody, I think that in many ways, you know, an openness to the stuff on this side of the equation all of a sudden starts to fund a lot of the stuff that you want to do on this side of the equation. So if you can find a way to balance them both, and I think Miami has done this quite well. Like, and I think that Suarez also picked this up very quickly. Is like, oh, if I want to fund a lot of these things over here that I would think of as, you know, maybe more societally interesting, we got to get more commercial. And so I think you can do both if you're willing to kind of take those steps.
And I hope now, you know, obviously David Sachs has moved here. Craft Ventures has their HQ here. You know, 8VC has their HQ here. Like, we need to push more, though, to get the Y Combinators of the world here, to get more young founders building here. To like, there are actually, I think, a decent number of early stage investors who are here now, even if the firms are not here. I think the ecosystem just needs more young talent.
I have 2 gripes on this when you're done, by the way. But
Yeah,
you finish your thought.
More young talent, more funding to go into these companies. Like, SF is very forgiving. You could go burn, you know, Carbon did this. We burned $800 million. And like, but every single one of my coworkers from Carbon, like, their next companies have gotten funded. And so it's one of those things where I think Austin still has a little bit of the old guard where we didn't raise from a single Austin firm besides 8VC, which I would say is not Austin coded in that regard.
Right.
And I think that was an important, I just didn't want to meet with them. I didn't want to have to go put together like, let us see your 5-year pro forma. I was like, I don't fucking know what the next 3 months of pro forma looks like. Like, why are you like, you're taking a bet on a founder and a team and an idea. You know, we raised from scale for a Series A SF based firm. And so I think New York and SF do have this ethos of like, come here and build and try over and over and over again. And there is capital to go do that. We still don't have that.
The capital one, I think, is real, and also just the ethos of like, hey, like there will be a, for lack of a better term, backstop in the event that you do fail and you want to go try again. That doesn't exist as much here. And you could, you know, date this back to, you know, Austin Ventures is no longer much of a thing in terms of the true venture kind of community like that. As that dissolved, I think we had a little bit of a funding gap for years. 8VC has come down, but to your point, they weren't really Austin pilled. They really SF moving to Austin and kind of had that ethos. We did take some checks from some local folks, but I think to your point, you just need the quantum of capital and also the risk tolerance of that quantum of capital to be here in Austin. That is not necessarily what we see. The 2 things I would mention on your statement. One, earlier you talked about this notion of like, well, tech is here, so we're fine on tech. This is, I think, like one general kind of perspective. The question is, what kind of tech is here?
Yeah.
And I think this is like a really important
software.
one. It's not software. And so I do think there is a segmentation of tech that is not getting done or talked about at the relevant, you know, administration levels to say, hey, yes, on an employment basis, you have many employees that work at tech companies. That is true. But here are the key needs of the startup community. And this is what the talent density looks like for those key needs. Like, that overlay is going to look very different than I think what we kind of project as a brand even in the city. And then 2, I'd say there's a lot of founders that are here. I mean, if I go down the list, like JD with Coverage, Justin at TrueMed, think incredibly highly of these guys, Nick at Commons Clinic, you've got Joel at Bright Harbor. Like, I can go down the list of great founders that are here locally. Chris at Thatch, you know, of course, who's supposed to be here today. All right, TK is here, of course. So there are folks that are both building today and those that have built that have come here. And so I think you have a lot of the founder community that is here. What I don't know if we necessarily have is the entire companies that are getting built here or built here in some capacity. I am very much empathetic that I think you need multi-office in order to get the degree of talent that you need to build fast. It's very hard to do it in one place, no matter where you are. I mean, even the SF businesses oftentimes have an office somewhere else too. And so like, that's just a reality. And I think that's the right thing to do. You know, I think having a multi-office setup is the right thing to do. I think it would be great though to have more talent density and key functions in Austin, which I do not think you have. I think it's just unequivocal. Like, we went down the list when we were going through the recruiting, you know, cycle for talent at Gyde, as an example, just to make this very real. And we would go talk to recruiters and they would kind of work us through just like the pure, you know, TAM, if you will, for a certain profile engineering talent. And it was kind of like, you know, 10-to-1 SF to New York and then 10-to-1 New York to Austin in terms of just like the ratios. And that was just real. You know, it was just objective fact of what we're looking at.
And we have a full-time head of people now, and she does all of our recruiting. And like, she's awesome. But same thing. She's like, look, we're we could spend 6 months trying to fill this role in Austin, or I can get it filled for you in 3 weeks if we go and look at other places and just recruit from everywhere. And so, and there are a lot of companies, to your point. I mean, even 5 floors below us in our building is Mia, the AI for auto dealerships. They just raised a $20 million A. Like, they're in our building. You've got Augment Trucking, which the founder's here in Austin, but the team is not. They're in SF. So same thing. You have a lot of founders. And I think, I don't know what incentives you need to put in place to get people to move. Perhaps it's just you have to raise enough money to convince them that you're a stable company and get employees to move.
I think that's the hard. As we were talking about, some, like, you know, the bigger ones we've talked about, like, they create a gravity under their own. You're like, this is okay. We're going to attract the talent here and this. When you're in that kind of, you know, executing like you guys are, you've raised decent amounts, but not the level that you're like, okay, you know, when you're raising hundreds of millions or something, you're like, it's not going anywhere.
The Seronics and the Bases of the world, I think, are obviously, you know, probably a few years ahead of us in the life cycle and also funding trend. And, you know, I think that's just a reality. I think, you know, both of us have high confidence that we will get there, but there's just an obvious timing and just journey kind of point in time where we are relative to those folks, where it's just different. And two, I think to Alex's point, we're also both looking at like kind of different engineering profiles in those orgs. I mean, what you're looking for somebody that's building hardware in a warehouse, you know, the base case, no pun intended, you know, they're in the Statesman building, right? Like they have an entire building downtown. You know, we've got a, you know, roughly 16-person, you know, office and off Medical Parkway, about, you know, 7-ish minutes away, with unbelievable talent in that office. But largely for more of the organizations and profiles that I mentioned earlier, less on the technical side, which is much more, you know, in New York, remote. We've got a number of great LA team members as well, less so here in Austin.
I think we need, I mean, it's just kind of across the board, like the phrase, like, Austin's always punched above its weight, and like the weight's got to catch up now. I mean, we were talking about this when, like, so when we put out the Bio and Health report, and we've got, you know, there's like 50 or 60, you know, VCs that invest in bio and health, but when you cut it down to like that are at the stage you're looking for in the particular way you're looking, okay, you get down to 10 or 12 kind of thing, versus if you go to SF after you've done that cut down, you're at 50 or 60.
Right. You know, we do have some good investors out here, like Sapphire Ventures has an office here now. Matt Occo from DCVC moved here a while back.
Finally went public that he was here.
Yeah,
there's a number of funds. I mean, HealthQuest is here, Virtue is here, Sapphire's here. I mean, there's a number of that are here, but quieter, you know, for sure.
Well, the exact point though, like Virtue and HealthQuest are perfect examples of being like, okay, you're not going to get from both because one is early, one is very late, right? Yeah. And so, but it's kind of that perfect mix of like, we want more Virtues, we want more, totally. I mean, more HealthQuest.
Shout out to Sean, they're, you know, full disclosure, an investor in us, very close with, you know, Sean. They were in our seed.
Their first Austin investment. I think Sean said that recently online.
That might be true.
So that was driving. That might be true.
You
know, it was driving me a little crazy. I'm like, you're in the help. We got this stuff. Why are you not doing anything here?
Oh yeah.
We have had some interesting companies too, like Wheels here, Eberly.
Which, I mean, Wheel is Sean's wife runs Wheels.
Yeah, I know.
Also a Lightspeed company. So I mean, like, there's definitely stuff that is here. It's just,
but I don't know. You know, as Wheel went from like, you know, they scaled up to a couple hundred people. I don't know why more. You don't see like as many ex-Wheel folks or Eberly Health folks like starting companies as well.
It's the cool. I think there's a
seeing that
thing,
on Everly. There's a few ex-Everly people starting some companies.
Yeah. I do think there's a cultural challenge there for sure. It's cultural plus funding, but it's all connected. I mean, that's why I say, like, I think that we've got to view these things more as a, you know, systemic challenge, and just say, are we really attacking like the various parts of it? You can call it a flywheel, you can call it whatever you want, but like, are we really addressing the issues that are interconnected to one another across, you know, sure, politics, the funding environment, the entrepreneurial culture you build, talent, all of these things are very important.
And I've been talking about this for a while, but we just don't have the density. Like, there isn't a part of town that I would think about walking around and going into a coffee shop and just seeing a bunch of people hacking away on stuff. I mean, maybe when I first moved out here in East Austin, you have like Greater Goods Coffee was maybe the one coffee shop I'd go into and run into people. But you know, you have kind of the Yard is its own separate thing. You've got Sea Home, which is its own separate thing. You've got Downtown, which is every old mix of companies. And then you've got, you know, like South Congress and South Lamar. It's just so spread out. Yeah, is another big piece of it.
Yeah, we were talking this before.
And the domain. I don't know why the fuck companies go to the domain.
Jason's building a biocenter there, so that's why.
I'm gonna fix this. So one of the things
is far from you.
Okay. So we're at the point now where we do need the micro neighborhoods, right? Like the idea, you know, if you say like in Silicon Valley, like where is tech there? That's stupid, right? But like, where's the AI neighborhood? You're, oh yeah, it's right there, right?
Cerebral Valley.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have the same situation happening here. Some of it's happening organically, like, that manufacturing corridor where like Saronic and Icon and American Housing Corp, they're all kind of in that area. Okay, great. That's where because they need the space to go manufacture that. I do think there needs to be, Joe, they call it like Bio and Health Boulevard. A lot of this start off with, I think the first time you and I got coffee, when you're just like, there's nowhere to go and that. And I personally do think the domain makes sense. Just because
too far.
It's not that far.
It depends on where you live.
If you just going up Mopag versus trying to come to the heart of downtown.
It's far where you live. I mean,
my brother works at the domain.
Yeah, I mean, so we live in Northwest Hills. Domain would be like 5 to 10 minutes from us. I think it just depends on where you live in the city. It's far for those. It's definitely far for you, no question. I think it can be far for those that live east, just because you've got to cut across multiple
183
painful highways in order to get there.
I do not like the 183. Yeah, like anytime I like the 183. No, I was talking to Josh from Levels, and he was like, "We will never move to Maine." I'm like, "Okay, thanks." But because of the med school is now moving up there, because of the zoning changes that are happening up
med
there,
school is a big deal for you guys. For sure.
I think across, like whether you are, some things are having things come out, some things are, because they're doing the Pickle campus. I think because like the way that we think about, and the way we invest is, you've got the bio-innovation tech stack, right? So this is kind of the AI drug design, cloud labs, those kind of things. And then the business of health, which is all the stuff that you guys are doing, right? And so you need kind of both of those things.
Yeah. I mean, I like being downtown. Our office is straight in the middle of downtown. Sometimes I have to fight some crackheads on the way into the office, but like it's fine. It's nothing like San Francisco.
It's a character building exercise, man. Yeah. I don't even know why you're complaining about it.
My favorite neighborhood's actually Seaholm, but Whole Foods basically took over the whole area over there. And then you've got one co-working space, which is Trick Hat. It's a beautiful co-working space, but it's so expensive. They quoted us like $8K a month for like a 5-person office. And I was like, I can't spend that on a 5-person office. And so, and then South Lamar, you have a lot of, I think actually one thing I would love to see more of is more smaller office space that is flexible, that you can grow into. It is really hard to find office space. It took us months to find even where we're in now, and we're kind of growing out of it. I'm like, what do we do? Like, I can't expand in here. We're in a 2-year lease, or technically 3-year, but I have a 2-year out clause. And I'm like, where do I go? And then I start looking at office buildings on South Lamar downtown. It's like, do you want 17,000 square feet? I'm like, no, I don't want 17,000.
So you're saying there's like the mid-size office gap?
Yes, there's this like 10 to 50 person office size gap that is impossible to find office space for in flexible leases.
Okay, so I have yelled at the real estate people, and I will yell at them again here.
Which ones?
All of them. Both publicly and privately on this exact note. Both from the just when you're like, well, we got these 100,000 foot square, units. It's like, who the hell needs that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very happy. I will say this publicly. I've said this publicly before. I'm happy that the whole 3M building, Carlin, got it seems like a data center or something. It seems to be taking that over, and that's great. And that's a win for everybody. But when they developed that as a life science hub that was 800,000 square foot units, and then couldn't attract anybody, and I would be like, because everyone needs 5 and 10,000, and Emerald or Billion to One, or the people who do need that much space, just build their own.
Yeah, we're in 2,000 square feet. It's great. We're going to outgrow it soon. Then we need like 3,500. Then we need 5. Like, I just can't go from 2,000 to 10,000 immediately.
Right.
And so there's this massive gap. And then I can't go sign a lease that's 4 years for a 3,000 square foot office, because I'm probably going to outgrow that at some point. And so you're just kind of like stuck.
It's just our next gig, man. We're just going to create the mid-sized office construct for the
well, and
the
that's
city.
Notel. Notel is actually a company that is big in New York. They have one space here in Austin.
And a good friend used to work for Notel.
Yeah, and the problem though is then they're like $70 a square foot versus, we're paying probably $30 a square foot right now, or plus, triple net.
The premium on all the setup and everything else is real.
Yeah. So that actually is probably one of the things that I think makes it very hard to set up a company here as well, is like there isn't a lot of office space in one centralized place. I love, like, people doom scroll Zillow. I love doom scrolling LoopNet. And so I love looking at office space.
We all have.
His is getting fired from every company that happens after that.
That's good.
Okay, so were you the origin of that joke? Is that how it? Okay.
I think so. I mean, at least from like a very viral perspective, I was the origin of that joke, and it keeps working over and over again for some reason.
Keep going until it doesn't work. It is funny.
What is your follower count on X?
I don't know, 230,000, something like that.
It's like a pseudo celebrity on your pod, man.
Oh yeah. It's actually funny when I will see his posts coming in different places.
Yeah.
It's like recycled.
Oh, I love when I see the screenshots of Cohen's posts floating around.
Yeah, it's like here's the. I think it was the Waffle House hurricane one.
Oh yeah,
I saw
that wasn't even a shit post.
Right. It was a political blog that I ended up seeing that. I'm like, oh, I know. I should just send this to him.
Yeah.
I almost had you beat on the Terrafab one though. The one time ever, I was like, I'm texting him, going like, I'm ahead.
Keep in mind, I've never had a post in my life on Instagram, so this is a big step up from where I am from a social media proficiency perspective.
LinkedIn and Twitter are like my outlets. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm same on that.
I hate Instagram and Facebook and don't use Chinese spyware with TikTok. So
I haven't even downloaded TikTok. I don't think so. There you go.
Kids can't touch any of that, and then I'm on same on LinkedIn and X, and it is always interesting.
It's Twitter.
I actually came on an X to Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So
your content's great.
Only a couple years, but it is interesting just the very different algos on the two of them, because I have like X the followers on LinkedIn, and my impressions on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is like 10 times.
I think the community within X is probably a lot more interested in some of the content that you produce, and so I think there's an obvious kind of shareability and virality that can occur within that platform, maybe relative to LinkedIn, because I do think LinkedIn's more of the professional masses, where X is right. It's a certain
This is what this taught me about B2B SaaS.
That's right.
There's a lot of Twitter slop too, but yeah,
for sure.
Yes,
for sure.
No, and it's also I think the fact that just back to the algos itself, like what I found is like a LinkedIn share is a weight in the algo versus a share on X it actually gets shared. Right. So if like I have a big person, share this, like all of a sudden it goes big, right?
Yeah.
So I will say like my my biggest posts, and I will say that Caleb Hammer was nice enough to share them both times, and like that kind of what
he's popped off, and he stayed here in Austin, which is great.
That was part of it. Was he was kind of like, I'm maybe leaving and going, and then I kind of like was tweeting at him, and then I think he likes it. I'm his Austin data guy.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that comes to mind too. As I think about X, and they've got XAI now, and it's like all these AI labs are all in the Bay Area. Like, how do we get one here? We just need one here that can pop off and become big. I do think AI saved San Francisco. Like they were going through a mass exodus, and no one, was building. It felt like no one was building there for a while. And then now you look at like Anthropic and OpenAI are raising hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars combined.
OpenAI was 110 billion the last round,
and Anthropic's now at 30 billion ARR, scaling $1 billion a day or whatever it is, which is insane.
It's
like
absurd.
It's gonna literally prop SF up for a long time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had a buddy, one of my good friends, is president of Legion Health, who's doing great.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Arthur's incredible. The whole company's doing great. Those guys.
I'm going to continue to give him crap for leaving.
Yeah, you should.
Oh, did he leave Austin?
He left. He went back to SF.
Well, so he went to San Diego.
He's going to come back. I'm going to get him back.
Part of it was like, in total fairness to both him and Allie, who my wife and I are incredibly good friends with. We're seeing them over Memorial Day. Actually, we're going to San Diego to see them. Part of it was kind of family ties, just where you're most comfortable from the city. But Arthur flies to SF, I think, every single week, and his view is like, look, if I'm in an AI business and it's not a huge company, I got to go be in SF, because that's where the center of gravity was from a talent perspective. Now, I would argue we've been able to work through that, both pulling from some great talent from LA, some great talent from New York, and some great remote hires as well. But it is on the margin. If you just look at, the recruiting conversations I had earlier were just like so revealing. Yeah. It's where the talent is for that particular domain.
No, I'll give him crap, but I understand it. Like it's not an irrational decision.
But he also doesn't have kids.
100%.
And I think that's one thing too.
It changes the calculus a lot.
It does. I looked at.
We'll see where he lives after he exits.
Yeah.
He gets closer to an exit.
Yeah, it's Series B. Run away, get the hell out.
That's right. I told Arthur, hey, look, I can buy the place right next door, and then whenever you hit the Series B financing, I'm happy to have you move in. I'll sell it to you at a modest friend premium, and that's it.
I mean, it's funny too, because he's so red pilled that like SF is the opposite, I think, of his personality.
Arthur is incredibly red pilled.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't feel like that's a secret. Like he literally.
No. I'd actually argue it's the opposite of a secret. He's very promotional. And I mean, I think, look, Arthur's an incredible human in many ways. I think he is quite red-pilled politically, but have just incredibly great things to say about both him and his wife. Great people. But and I think, over time they may come back. We'll see. But, he gave very clear rationale for leaving. And
and this is the decision you have to make, is like when we actually moved from the Bay Area when we had our first kid, because I didn't want to raise kids in California and go fight for schools and go deal with all the things there. And so we moved out here. Now we're almost on kid number 3. And I do think this is a much better place to raise kids than I looked at the Bay Area, like, do we go back down to San Mateo? Do we go out to Walnut Creek? And I'm like, why do I even want to be out there by, like, I guess I could commute. I'm still commuting into SF. And so I don't really at this point feel any FOMO not being there. I don't know if you feel the same way. I haven't been back in months. I mean, I went out there and we were raising our A, but I don't know. I feel like we've got everything we need here, and I need to be heads down building. I don't need to be going to a bunch of hackathons or going around to meetings after meetings. I can go do my 2-week tour of duty when I need to go out there whenever.
Well, when you raise the B, you're going to have to go out there again.
And
so,
even the nature
Make the investors come here.
That's right. Well, I mean, I think we've assembled an incredible team here. And so I think, the proof is in the pudding just from, the talent density in the office is what it is. And so I think on one level, I say we've gotten amazing talent here in Austin. I'm from here, so I'm like a little bit biased. Like, in some ways, Alex is probably a much better kind of objective.
I like the bias. I'm not from here. Yeah, very biased.
When you grow up here, I think you have a natural, bias to wanting to improve the city that you grew up in to the extent possible. But for us, we've been able to, garner a lot of great talent. But the other thing I'd say is a real feature is in our business, one of the things that we see, and you guys probably see this too, selling into these communities, there is still a very large gap between what I would call Main Street community-centric businesses that are just trying to do a great thing for the people that are in their local communities and what we might be reading about on X. And I actually think a removal from SF is very helpful for our business to be able to come into these, agency offices and say, hey, we're going to enter with empathy and help them navigate this paradigm shift and do so in a world that's more grounded, I think, in reality here in Austin, where you see a little bit more of a balance versus SF, which is just like, hey, Anthropic's new model came out yesterday. Why aren't you running on it? It's just not where the rest of the country is.
Right.
And I see it as a real benefit to what we're building to actually be here locally in Austin and even New York for that matter as well.
And also understand like the narrative, when you say like, oh, these AIs are going to take everyone's job.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, that's not what people want to hear. Like, and also like I'm very, bullish on AI, and I think we're heading more towards like superpowered people than like you're not going to do anything.
We're seeing it now. I mean, you guys are as well. Like that's what we're seeing.
I mean, most like 90% of our code is written by AI, and you just have to have competent engineers who know that they're not building things that are going to break. And but I do think, to your point, we sell to Main Street as well, and our customers are in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Atlanta, Georgia, and South Florida. Like they are not
South Florida, great places. Man.
Yeah,
all great places.
So much healthcare down there, and I think there's not a huge sales advantage of us being in SF or New York. There actually are fewer healthcare companies that we would go sell to in those two cities than there are everywhere across the world. Like I love going to an obscure town and meeting like a 50 clinic chain. And I think that that's an important piece of what we do. Like our sales director is in Columbus, Ohio. A lot of our sales team is actually spread out now because they're just traveling to conferences and they don't care that we're in SF or New York. It helps us.
Depending on kind of who you're talking to, it might actually help you guys because you can almost counter position and say, hey, look, we're kind of building in communities that look and feel more like yours versus those that are, highly kind of AI pilled, for lack of a better term, and are even in this like, complete replacement mode. I think you guys can come in as more the empowerment centric, pitch, which I think does land very well.
We're about to sign another urgent care chain, and they're based here in Austin. There's 60 clinics. Like they're a big shop, and they like that we're here.
Let's go, man.
Yeah, there's another one in LA
or something. Like,
yeah, we have a gong in the office. You can come hit it sometime.
I love that. We the team in New York. Shout out Dan Marshall. God, I wanted to get a gong, and I'm all about it. I think, and to that end,
I'll show you where to get one cheap.
I also, please, I'm all about optimization.
I'm pitching Austin next to be bought by a giant AI company too.
Yeah. Anthropic can buy you guys as the counter position against TBPN. But to this end,
I think XAI is probably a little more aligned than Anthropic.
I do think, no comment on either one. I do think that notion, though, the support of other Austin founders even could be better.
Yeah.
Like in some ways, I think folks don't even realize. I mean, I rattled off a handful of names earlier. I think a lot of people, when I do that, are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, they live here.
The one thing I give the Gundo guys a lot of credit for, some things that do drive me a little crazy, but I'm generally bullish on them, is the 25 of however many there are, right?
Totally.
They're like, you're the main character of the day. We're all in. Go do that.
Totally.
This, that kind of thing. Like that doesn't happen here as much. You'll have like the giant like things, but like, we're talking like Saronica Base again, like they'll have that gravity, but I'd like, Justin and Zach and Dino and Rob, like to, when other people are hit, like, you guys should be shouting it out too.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
So
I guess one thing that I haven't yet spent enough time trying to grok is like, like Michael Dell like doing anything for the startup community? Like I haven't seen, I feel like the name doesn't come up. You have this, like, you think about Austin, you think about Dell. It really is that is the name brand here. Dell's built a massive company, but I've yet to see like that translate down to like the earliest stages of building. Maybe
you might be closer to on this, but my understanding is the Dellionaires and the spinoff and so forth didn't really translate into the startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
I mean, like the greatest offshoot of the Dell tree in startups is Zach.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Adam Dell too. He started a company and sold it, but like,
I think his kids. And I think generally there's two pieces to it. I think one, the Dell family writ large has done incredible things for the city, and so I think you have to give them a lot of credit for the medical school. I'm a member of the JCC to work out at, at Northwest Hills, right? And so like, there's lots of, I think, just like fingerprints of their impact throughout the city. I think to your point though, and I'll speak about both of these. One, it feels like much more of his energy now is at the state, federal level, Trump accounts, et cetera, and figuring out how do we almost like refactor the way the economy works and the way the youth of our economy is brought up. And I think that's like between him and Gershner very much where they're kind of channeling the energy, which is not a bad move by any stretch, but less so at the kind of like microeconomy level here in Austin. And then two, I don't know if the entrepreneurial culture fostered or enabled the Dellionaires to double down and make another bet.
Right.
So one example is in SF, what the venture community does is they go find all of the folks at the Stripes, the Oscars, the Carbon Health, and they say, oh, great, I'm going to go reach out to those folks and engage them before they even start a company. And so instead, when those Dellionaires come out of Dell and they say, okay, I've had a nice exit, I now have the opportunity to take a life-changing swing. Instead, they say, no, I'm just going to kind of hang out because there is no infrastructure to enable them to take a life-changing swing. They have to put their own chips on the table for that. SF says, no, we got you there. Like, you go take that swing. We'll take care of the downside risk.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like they had their, if you want to call it their secondary before their secondary, they could have taken the big swing. But unfortunately, we just lacked the infrastructure and I think cultural empowerment even to say like, this is what we celebrate.
Right.
And that was
which is coming a lot more now. And I think that's the innate of like culture of helping and all of that I think is here. And then I think the thing we are importing from kind of the Silicon Valley is this like, you can go for a home run.
Do you think that the press is really helping to enable this as well?
The press,
Austin business community on a press basis is really helping to kind of shine a light on the entrepreneurial community and everything that's going on. Like, did anybody in Austin talk about your Series A round? Was there anybody that picked that up?
Maybe there were a couple. Not
you're building locally. You're producing jobs here.
Besides Walt Macaborski from CBS Austin, the press sucks. Like they're actually very anti.
Right. And so I think
like the statesmen, they either don't have access or they're anti.
I don't know if a single.
I actually did reach out to a few firms and they all ghosted me, if I recall.
I don't know if we had much press engagement locally in Austin at all. And keep in mind, I'm a guy that grew up here, loves the city. We're hiring here, and it's in some ways disappointing because I actually think the entrepreneurial community and the press could work together, similar to what I just articulated on the government side, to be more symbiotic if they wanted to. One of the things that helped make SF a lot was that in the early days, the tech community and the reporting infrastructure there was very symbiotic. They're like, hey, if we're an abundance-centric, culture or mindset, and we can help to grow the tech community, it will help us.
I think you're seeing that, like, you're seeing what you have with PyWire's TPN, they're rebuilding it out.
Oh yeah, but the new media figured this out.
Yeah, and so I think that some of that you're having, like, obviously, I know Arena Magazine is national, in scope, but like, totally. Max is here, and a lot of people are writing articles and doing stuff for that. Like here, you got like Austin Business Review coming up, which is really kind of connecting all the events and stuff that's happening. So there's new stuff kind of coming out, but it's getting built up from scratch.
I think that is right, but I mean. The proof there is just in the pudding. I mean, is anybody picking up, JD's round with coverage here locally in Austin? JD lives here. Is anybody picking up Alex's round? Is anybody picking up Thatch's acquisition of Ventor's book? No. Like
I did.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. You uniquely, and I think a handful of others that are more in the kind of like go direct and new media category are certainly doing it. But if we really want to celebrate what is going on, you got to shine a bigger spotlight on it.
I agree.
And I think with everything that is great about the city right now, we really lack an awareness broadly of all of the entrepreneurs in the city that are doing great things. I mean, I can go down the list, and it's say, I mean, did anybody pick up Justin's round at TrueMed? Probably not.
The company's ripping.
And that company, exactly, is absolutely ripping. Has anybody profiled Justin? No.
No.
Now, is Justin on TBPN? I mean, he's friends with those
But they're
guys,
also
so
not
helps, of course.
based. Like, he's here, but TrueMed's not really here, right?
Totally.
So,
But I do wonder if you start to see more of an embrace of those that are here, does that create more gravity?
It's the narrative, right? And I got an argument with a few, like, we're all in different, in some group drifts together and some different ones, like, need to embrace narrative more. And like a lot of people who are like, well, we just be head down and build the things. No, you don't. Like, you got to actually get out there and tell the story and it kind of has that second order effect because you want to recruit and people are, oh, well, if there's like 90 companies here, like I think we could have a better density of the talent you want if people realized how much stuff is going on.
I mean, we have tried to varying degrees to engage and just haven't had much traction. And in many ways in our business, like we even, I think, can play in areas that might be great stories for some in those media, publications.
I also think as I like reflect on this in real time, we just have way more industries that have a presence here than SF is very software and AI oriented. Manufacturing and defense tech and hardware. We also some software
too distributed in some ways.
Yes,
the point.
But there's also like a massive D2C community. You look at all the there's been a ton of companies that have exited here that are D2C, like food and beverage.
Yeah, there used to be a lot of B2B software.
The biggest exits of last year were CPG.
Like,
but when I grew up, it was
Agua.
all B2B software when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole
and
like
we still
Silken Hills.
We still have a large presence. Like I always joke, like obviously not as well connected into that realm.
Right.
And so when Ninja One keeps
Ninja
announcing their large deal, I'm like, I have no, like obviously all of us, we know about deals that are coming down the pipe. That one is like, no, keeps happening. So I always
$500 million round. And it's like,
and that was like a 250 or something before that.
Why haven't there been like 50 ex Ninja One people that have started companies at this point? And like, why? When we interview, it's like all SDRs and BDRs who are applying from jobs from Ninja One as an example. Like, you don't I don't know with these big companies like where this talent is going or who's here. Even though we have a lot of interesting companies here, I do think that they're not profiled as much, and they're not, I mean, OpenAI and Anthropic are the two companies talked about like nonstop in the news.
And to be fair, they do suck. I mean, deservedly so. They're sucking up a lot of the attention right now. But even locally, I just think it's wild.
WebAI got some good coverage. WebAI, so they're
Web did, but I mean,
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, they're like
exactly.
They're like on-prem AI. So the idea is instead of like it's not small language models, but that's at least the best way I can describe it. So like they're putting their models like on Aura rings on the device and that kind of thing. So you have the connectivity and so forth. And so
what would
their last valuation is 2.5.
What would you be doing differently with respect to press engagement and general awareness building? Because I think in some ways that's where it starts. Like if you don't have someone that's more like Suarez that's kind of going direct, you've got to have, I think, the press and kind of local economic development community that is supporting the stuff that, Alex is doing, the stuff that Chris is doing at Thatch, et cetera, to make the community work. Zach Dell is going to be totally fine for a variety of reasons, but it's, I think the others as well have got to have a little bit more of that press uplift.
You need more storytellers out there. You need the, looking at these kind of niches. I mean, I said like one of the things that I saw on like, we were talking about this before, like Core Memory did like, more culture. They did a peptide party like conversation.
I didn't get an invite to the peptide party.
They were describing a pet, and then another one was like a very like Gongzo kind of journal, like here was my night as Evan, just kind of a chronicle of it. And I think that's the kind of story that like is going to get to 25 years, because like I read it and I was like, oh, that's cool. I can't go to that kind of stuff anymore, but
I want to do a peptide party. I think we should also host more conferences here and host more summits and just get more people coming to the city. I mean, also, I think South by is a disaster these days. Like it was really weak this year.
It's a carnival, man.
Yeah, it's like, how is Sam's Club your largest? Like Sam's Club and Rivian being your two largest sponsors, that makes zero sense to me. Like there's no cohesion around.
Like, it's not even. It's shifted. It's not just a corporate. They also push things away. Like it was
they
a
pushed
major
out defense tech.
And so now, if they think they're like, oh, we can bring it back, Tectonic took its place. So we had a big. So a counter one came up.
Yep.
It started last year. It was really well. Now it is like one of the defense. It's right in the middle of South by. It's like, like you wouldn't go like. everyone already goes there now.
Where is that one?
It's in Austin.
Oh,
in
They-
Austin.
They put it as counter to like
It's
Screw you,
literally,
as they should.
yeah.
yeah, and so like now it is. So it's during
Right.
that, but now it's like it's the place. Like
Yeah.
if South by tries to go like, well, we want defense tech again. You're like, well, why would we? We're going to Tectonic.
And if you
Yeah.
look at just the sheer quantum of funding going into defense tech now, it is a very weird decision to cut that out completely from the programming.
I mean, I had friends who bought tickets this year to South by, and they're like, I don't know why we bought tickets. This was stupid. And I think there was I was literally on Gemini asking, like, what is South? I was so confused. I was like, what is South by? And it's like,
What did
it's a
Gemini
tech
say?
event. It's a music festival. It's an arts thing all in one. I'm like, okay, I get that this is what they've been doing, but like, what's the theme? And it's like, there is no theme.
Well, and I think that's okay in
I
the
think
sense
that was the part. Initially, that was what was cool about
yeah,
it.
it's South by, but that also gets to the point when I hear we're like, we're doing South by London, South by Australia, and then it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like it is part of Austin, all these kind of things.
Because
but,
when back when I was, we'll call it growing up, and then even as I
A
got
young
into
lad.
a young lad, it was much more focused on broad cultural embrace of tech and media.
right.
Where would Airbnb come to launch Airbnb? They would come to South by. It was much more of almost an event, for the artists and the entrepreneurs. And I think now we've started to like
Now it's Sam's Club.
yeah, I mean, I call it a carnival because in many ways now it's like this kind of corporate-y, media-y, PR-y type of mishmash of things. And I think in some ways when you've smashed all this together, you've lost the unique outlier identity that it used to have. And that's been a little disappointing, even if it still does bring a lot of folks to the city.
Like, why don't we have TK launching the latest version of Cloud Kitchens here at South by? Like, why don't we have,
100%.
I know Saks.
Why
did
did
a
he
big-
not do the announcement at South by?
Yeah, we're missing actually, I think, a big, real like a new event that
Yeah.
takes place that really celebrates at least like,
Right.
I mean, and it should invite folks from SF and ever all over to do launches
it'd be
here.
the-
Why wasn't
Come
TVPN on site at South by
Yeah.
doing the, literally live streaming from the hall?
But live streaming what? That was like I made the
It's
point
like you
like
can't
Rivian
really
had a
touch the
dope
live
event, by the
stream.
way. Rivian took over 6th Street and like showed the R2 off, and it was great. But I was like, okay, is this like
but
is
it's the
this
same
an
event
auto
they
show?
have, but same event they have every year.
Yeah,
And then the autonomy, Cybercab, Optimus pop up had a bunch of people kind of come. Like
Yeah.
it was all the surround. Like there was a bunch of interesting things happening, but none of it was
yeah. There
happening.
was nothing that exciting about South by
Like
this
the
year.
the only thing, it was either politics coming out that was like making me sick, or like Gurley and Gary Tan had a fireside that some interesting stuff, and like Gary said, like yeah, we're looking at opening something in Austin.
Totally.
And he's also said before, like if the wealth tax passes, like they're moving to Austin. But
Hope it does pass.
Honestly, I think if it even gets on the ballot, I mean, Ron Conway's even been very public about this. Just getting on the ballot would be enough of a signal for a lot of people to leave. Because it just
Talking
says
about
that
it,
it could get
I
there.
had a bunch of people leaving. There's still more people leaving and
Sure.
everything and that kind of thing. We can obviously talk about Austin forever. I know we had a hard stop coming up. I'm going to pivot on the ending question and change it a bit. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to make you each king of Austin for a day. And you
Oh,
get to make
wow.
one big change to this. What
First
are you doing?
Firing the DA. Actually, like prosecute. I mean, I think like Austin has the potential to be such a great city as well. And I think one thing that we have going against us is a very, very woke liberal local government. And
It doesn't really represent, I think, the actual like people of Austin.
no, and I'm it's like we don't prosecute crime. We have a lot of systemic issues as a city, and like that's one thing when you look at like what Garza has been doing, letting people out over and over and over again. I'm not far on any side of the political spectrum. I'm very centrist as well. All I would like to see is a safe
Some
central part of the
rational
city. Yeah, rational
decision-making.
decisions. Like you look at these folks with like repeat 25, 30 crimes, and they're still out walking the street. It's like that's not what any rational city does. And
Right.
so I think that's one thing that I would do is get rid of a lot of the like local government who is pushing for very unsafe policies like that. And then two is I don't know. I think we'd have to set up some sort of like committee or chair or whatever to go after just attracting, whether it's like tax breaks or whether it's like getting folks to move here and just do something that encourages more folks to open up offices here. And that could include, Google, Facebook, or Meta, groups like that have tried to move more and more of their offices here. Like, how do we get more of that? How do we encourage them to actually fill those offices downtown? How do we get founders to move here? I think that there's probably a lot to do that I'm not an expert at these policies, but we don't have anyone that it seems like pushing for this right now.
Yeah.
We should be winning. Like, I don't know why we didn't win Palantir here as well. We should have. And the fact that we didn't fight for it is like, and now we're even fighting against folks like Elon when they're building massive gigafactories out here and bringing, all these large companies out here. Just do more of that. Like I very much believe in, sort of an abundance mindset where like the more you bring here, the better it is for everyone. And we just have to keep saying no to the NIMBYs.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways you could argue that, Austin has become almost a microcosm of what's happening nationally with respect to the political dialogue and culture. And I think if we could find opportunities to say, look, these things actually fit very well together if you think about them as a system, as opposed to, two things that seem to kind of move in opposite directions, I think it would be in a much better place. I think in some ways we need to get back to Austin's roots, which was an embrace of the artist, the entrepreneur, et cetera, how I grew up, with an acceptance and even a, if we want to call it a following of what perhaps places like Miami are doing with a more, pro-business excitement. I think you can do both. And I think what's been perhaps like absent from the more recent dialogue is this opportunity to say, hey, we can both be pro-business and do some of the things that made Austin great, when I was growing up. And, I think to your point, there's lots going on in the political sphere that may or may not be counter to, achieving that destination that, I articulated. But I think you can actually have even more of some of the social services that some of the folks on that side of the aisle are pushing if you can enable those with getting the pro-business leaders here, bringing their dollars to the Austin economy and using those appropriately in a way that's balanced from a budgetary perspective and hopefully at a surplus, such that not only does it improve the pro-business climate here, but even might improve those social services.
Yeah,
and even have the businesses serving those social services. Like frankly, right, we have some businesses we've acquired that have ACA business on the books. Would it be better to power us to service the low-income communities that need insurance coverage in a differentiated way? Yes, that would be amazing, right? And I think these things can fit together if we choose to allow them to. And unfortunately, it's been tough to watch that deteriorate more recently.
After Gyde, you'll go into politics.
I don't know if I'm a politics guy. I think my wife would kill me if I went that direction.
Yeah,
I just believe deeply in the city. And I think if we can think about these things in a systems-driven mindset versus, a party-driven or a stakeholder-driven mindset, we will see a lot of positive change. And we should celebrate those that want to help drive that. I think we should have much more on the announcement front for entrepreneurs like Alex, like Chris at Thatch. I think you are uniquely doing an unbelievable job at this. And so just deeply appreciate everything that you're doing for the community. And I just think we need more of it. And if I was going to say one thing that is more, kind of statesmanish, if anyone wants in the city to talk about this, like, look, I'm the first guy to raise my hand to say, I am happy to talk about it, find ways to help, et cetera. As a local guy, and by the way, someone that's hiring a lot of individuals that grew up in Austin as well. Like a lot of our team has some roots in Austin that's here. We are absolutely open to talking about anybody, press, business community, politics, even if that's the direction they want to go, fine. We're all about having the conversation. We've yet to have anybody reach out. So I am more than happy to talk to anybody about solving this problem as we think about, how we make Austin the preeminent 2035 city in the country.
Great place to end on.
We got 9 years to figure it out.
All right, let's go.
Well, Alex, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.